Good evening, everyone. This is Kim Taylor. It is the November 17, 2020 meeting of the Harbor Management Commission. Like other commission meetings in the COVID era, you will not be heard by commission members, but the public is encouraged to send their comments to the commission on its website at HMC. At fairfieldct.org with HMC 1117-2020 meeting in the subject line. As you would in a public meeting, please give your name and address with your comment. Your email address, your comments will be listed in the minutes, but your email address will not be listed. So this evening we have Mark Foster. Is Mark in attendance? Harry French is in attendance, Jack Hirschler, Ted Schwartzman, Eric Sunman, Sam Cargill, are you with us? Sam? Libby Trischler, Doug Metchick.
Kim, everyone was muted. It's Betty.
Everyone was muted? They should be able to unmute. Yes, everyone should be able to unmute themselves.
Yes. They have the instructions.
Yes.
Yes, to start with, everyone was muted, which is the way
everyone is muted.
Jeff.
They should be able to unmute themselves. Jeff, Betty, Ed Billings, Harbor Master.
Here.
So we're
Hi,
missing
Kim Taylor.
Libby.
It's Libby. I am here.
Wonderful. Thanks, Libby. Doug Metchick.
Here.
Mark Foster. Sam Cargill. Hopefully Mark and Sam will join us at some point in the course of the evening.
This is
Doug.
Everyone. I'm not sure if I was on mute. Did you
I got you, Doug, yes.
Okay,
you
perfect.
unmuted
Thank you.
successfully. Perfect. Thank you.
Mark's here.
Good, Mark. Thank you. Okay, so maybe Sam will be able to join us. This evening we have two sets of minutes to approve. The first are the minutes from the October 6th special meeting, which Betty has distributed. Does anyone have any concerns, questions about them? If not, can I have a motion to accept them as presented?
Libby will make a motion.
Thank you, Libby.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Harry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good, great.
Hey,
Great.
Kim,
And then,
it's Sam Cargill.
welcome, Sam. Gotcha.
Late.
Oh, glad you're here. The next set of minutes that we have to approve this evening are the minutes from our regular meeting of October 20. Do we have a motion to accept them, or if not, questions or concerns?
This is Jack. I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Jack. Do we have a second for the October 20 minutes?
Kim, it's Ted. I'll second.
Thank you, Ted. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Okay, great. That takes care of that. The chairman's report. I want you to. The first item was the letter from the town clerk's office, which were attached to the minutes. The bottom line of this letter is requesting that we do some things at our December meeting, namely come up with our meeting schedule, time, and vote for officers. And we will take up those items under new business. On November 12th, I communicated via email with the Pequot Yacht Club Commodore, Chris Smith, and Devin Santa, and Jeff Engborg, attaching one of the rules that was newly drafted to issue 51 mooring permits to the yacht club. On November 12th, I also talked to the town attorney, Jim Baldwin, about two items. One was with regard to holding a special meeting, which would be a public hearing, which would be the next step if the commissioners all feel that we are in a good place with these rules and want to proceed with the enacting the changes, and also asking the town attorney about the hold harmless part of the application for a mooring permit, whether if we switch the mooring permit to the yacht club as opposed to individual boaters, whether or not the town would request some changes to the hold harmless language in that application. And followed up on the 13th with Chris Smith, the Commodore at Pequot, again, just to be sure that we were on the same page with regard to the 51 mooring permits to be issued to the yacht club. And then finally, also on the 13th, we received an email from a Harbor Road resident about his concerns about his littoral rights vis-a-vis the new rules. And I apologize, that email needs to get on the town website, and I forgot about it until today, and Betty wasn't in the office today. So that'll go up on the town website tomorrow, I hope, if Betty can get it done, and so you can all see that. And before I turn this over to the harbor master, I just want to say thank you to Betty and Jeff. Jeff spent the better part of the weekend, I'm sure, since our special meeting, revising the draft rules and getting them into a format that would be more easily readable to all of you, as well as changing the language and to reflect the comments and concerns that were expressed in our special meeting by not only Pequot Yacht Club, but some members of the public. So, Jeff, thank you for that. To get the quick turnaround to get all these documents back out to you, a big thank you to Betty, who actually has another job and is keeping me honest by helping me make sure that the commissioners all get all of the materials in a timely fashion, as well as the town clerk, so that our meetings are legal. And finally, to Jack, who, when Jeff got done with all of the changes, was willing to sit down and take a look at them and made himself available at the last minute to be sure that give Jeff a hand with doing a lot of the proofreading and making sure that the changes made sense and were in a format that were easily readable. So thank you to all three of you, because this has been a lot of work in a very short period of time, and all three of you have other lives. So I'm really very grateful for your help and your dedication. You're very welcome.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to help.
Very, very welcome. So, okay, with that, the Harbor Master's report, Ed Billings.
Thank you, Kim. I also would like to commend you on your acknowledgement of all of those who have gone the extra mile in getting these the new documents not only initiated and all of the proofreading, and I know it takes a lot of time, and I also appreciate everyone's efforts. My report for November is very brief. I'm happy to report that no major damage occurred during the tornado watch the other night, and not to say that other communities around us did not suffer damage, but in Southwell Harbor we did not. I think first and foremost to having most, if not all, of the boats off as per town code on November the 15th. There was one vessel there as of yesterday, but that was extenuating circumstances, which I'm aware of, and it poses no issue in my mind. And so with that really concludes my report. I'm sorry it's so brief, but I'm sure there's other things to discuss. So,
Commissioners, any questions for the Harbor Master?
No.
Okay.
No, glad to hear there was no damage in that storm.
With that, let's move on. To we have no new applications. Let's move on to the Lower Wharf project. Jeff?
I have nothing more to report. Mr. Sternberg reported that he's got the material in order to the sediment data to send to the Corps of Engineers in a formal way, requesting the suitability determination, meaning the suitability for which disposal site it can go to. And his plan was to send that out this week. Now, the timing isn't really that urgent right now because we know we can't do the project this year, and we're going to have to reapply for a permit and hopefully be able to do it the next dredging season, which begins in October of 2021. So anyway, his schedule is, and he reported to me that he's planning to send the formal. It's not a submittal, but a transferal of the sediment data to the Corps this week.
Okay. Any questions for Jeff, Commissioners?
No.
Okay. Sand management, Mr. Stedman and Mr. Foster.
Defer to Mark on this.
Okay, Jeff. Yeah, thanks. So I think it was the last meeting, or at least a prior meeting, I said that the Army Corps had just rolled out their 2020 Bathymetric Survey. They call it a condition survey that covers the full extent of the federal project. And so by now, I reviewed it and crunched some numbers that show the changes in depth across the project between 2015 and 2020. Unfortunately, I don't have it yet in a graphic manner that's easy to share and understand. So that will be developed and will follow, I believe, before the next meeting. I'll be able to share it. And otherwise, we're just working on gathering related information and reviewing related information. And Jeff, you said that Army Corps representative would be prepared to meet us sometime before Thanksgiving. Is that right?
Well, the last meeting I thought it would be before Thanksgiving. I spoke with the project manager yesterday, and she said that they won't be able to meet us before Thanksgiving, which of course is between now and next week. But before the end of the year is their schedule to meet with us on site and with the DEEP. So this calendar year, but we don't have a precise date yet.
Okay, so that's our report.
But one, and I think we just to make clear, Mark, they do have a conceptual dredging plan. They're fine tuning it now. It's not that we're going to meet on site to figure out what to do. In some ways we are, but they have a conceptual dredging plan for restoring the 100-foot width of the channel. So that's what we're waiting to discuss with them.
So, if I may, the on-site meeting would be to discuss their plan.
Yes, and the impact on the vegetation and what the DEEP's reaction is to what's being proposed. And two people from DEP that I've talked with and emailed are available with the proper notice to meet us on the site, unless things get more difficult. But that's what we're planning to do. So it's to present the plan for dredging the 100-foot wide channel, restoring it, and then trying to get at least some agreement on how to mitigate the impact on the plants. That's the significant part of it. And Mark's work, to analyze is not. We're not, trying to redo the Corps' work. We're just developing our own knowledge so that we're more more intelligent in discussing this with him, and that we on our own are going to have to come up with some proposals, or we hope to, for reducing the amount of sand that's accumulating in the channel. That's going to be our responsibility to try to come up with the way to reduce that volume of accretion of sand.
Okay. Commissioners, questions for Mark or Jeff?
I have a comment. It will be very nice to have the channel back to the old original 100-foot width.
Amen.
Yeah, that's our goal for the last, Harry, for 25 years. And let's hope we can accomplish that before we're not around anymore.
Other questions for Jeff or Mark? Okay, thank you, gentlemen, both. Ted, our accounts and commitments.
Thank you, Kim. So what I wanted to do over the next couple of minutes is just review the HMC's accounts, where we stand currently, not only with our budget account, but also the other accounts that the HMC has, really to lead us into a recommendation that Kim and I have on what our budget should be for the next fiscal year. Betty sent around to commissioners a package of the agenda with attachments. And on page number 13 of that, there's a schedule that basically shows the HMC accounts relative to the budget and where we are currently. If you have that available, that's great. It might make this a little easier to follow. If you don't, I'll try to walk you through it anyway. So the most important number on this page is really the overall budget that we have for the year, which is at the very bottom of the first column of numbers on the left there, the original appropriation. And you can see that our budget is a little more than $23,000 for the year. That represents about a $1,000 increase over the previous fiscal year. And if you all recall from our October meeting, that $1,000 increase was really related to the harbor master's needs. Basically getting him a phone, a laptop, and other communications devices to make his role more effective and to allow him to communicate better. So the rest of this schedule basically shows where we are currently and how much of the budget is available. And you can see the year-to-date expended. We really haven't expended very much, about $4,000 of that $23,000. We do have encumbrances of about $16,000. And what these encumbrances are basically purchase orders that are out there that allow us to do things like get fees and professional services and advertising and communications and things of that nature. So between the encumbrances and the year-to-date expended, that only leaves us with about $4,000 of our budget remaining. But that's actually fine because we're right on schedule to where we think we should be at this point. The encumbrances should cover most of our remaining expenditures this year. And with the rest of the available budget, we should be fine for the rest of this fiscal year in terms of meeting the needs of the HMC. So that's an important point, just that we're on track, because what that really means is that when Kim and I took a look at this, we concluded that we thought submitting the same budget to the town of Fairfield for next fiscal year that we have for this fiscal year should be sufficient to cover our needs going forward, as we're not aware of any big expenditures coming up in the next fiscal year. The only however of that is, however, if any of the commissioners know of any significant expenditures that we should be anticipating, we should discuss those to make sure that we build those into our budget. So I would throw that question out to the commissioners as to whether anyone's aware of anything else that we should be taking into account for next fiscal year.
This is Doug Mitchick. I have a question. The pending use of the online mooring registration system, will that have any one-time setup fees or, what I'll call extraordinary implementation costs just in setting up that should be considered for, use of this year's budget or putting into next year's budget as that launches?
I believe the answer is no, but I think Jack could answer that question for us better than I could.
I'm not sure I understand. We launched that a year ago, so that system is up and in place and has been. So, Doug, what's the question?
So are there any fees related to that should be in this year's budget in the $3,000 surplus, or would there be anything we'd anticipate that would justify increasing the budget next year using the system?
Yeah, one question is whether things that we're going to be discussing in just a few moments about the rules and procedures have implications for system logic revisions in the online mooring system, and whether those would be free maintenance items or whether there would be something that we would be billed for. And I don't know the answer to that question. I also don't know if those expenses, if we were to incur any of them, would be charged to these accounts, to the town accounts, or to the account we're going to talk about in just a minute, the 102 account on that next page, which would be the Southport Harbor Management account, which is not a town budgeted account. So I don't know the answer.
This is Betty. I'm sorry to interrupt. The online mooring fees are all from the 102 mooring account.
Right. So even if we got them, Doug, it sounds like Betty's suggesting it would be not a budgeted item, but be something in the charge to the 102 account. And I'm not convinced at all that we'd incur any expenses with any updates related to changes we're contemplating right now for the rules and procedures.
Jack and Betty actually just provided a great segue into talking about the other accounts that the HMC is ultimately responsible for. And that's on the next 4 pages of the material that you have here. Basically, the next page shows how the Southport Harbor account, the 102 account, also known as a mooring account. That has about $217,000 in it. And historically, that's been used for expenditures that relate to the harbor. So, for example, we're thinking about getting the harbor master a boat, and there'd be other related expenses to that. I imagine that the funding for that boat and other related expenses, if that falls on the Harbor Management Commission, would come out of this account, for example. The following page, we have the Harbor Management Plan update, and that was a SHIP grant from the Connecticut Port Authority, where we have about $3,000 remaining in that account. The following page, we have a Lower Wharf account, which has about $21,000 remaining in it. And that represents monies that were left over from the Lower Wharf and the boat ramp project that has been completed to date. There's additional parts of that project that remain, and again, there's about $21,000 there. And then the final page shows the Lower Wharf dredging account, which has about $265,000 in it. And again, that's also a SHIP grant from the Connecticut Port Authority. So when you add all those up, there is about $500,000 or so that sit in various accounts that are mostly earmarked for different projects that we anticipate doing at some point in the future. For example, when cap material becomes available, or as we go through the Harbor Management Plan update. So that's one of the reasons that Kim and I feel comfortable going to the town with the same budget for next year that we have this year, is that there are other monies available to us, namely that Southport Harbor account, the 102 account, if we do find there's extraordinary needs that relate to the maintenance and the running of the harbor, that relate to basically things that are directly related to the harbor. Any questions about that? So really, to summarize, Kim's and my suggestion is that we go to the town with the same budget for next fiscal year that we have for this fiscal year, because we think that what is being applied to the HMC's budget this year will be very similar to what's applied to the HMC's budget for next year.
Ted, thank you. Commissioner,
Kim, that's my report.
And that's a good report, Ted. Thank you. Commissioners, are there questions? We have, as you see, we have several accounts and several ways that we are responsible for paying for different projects and things. But the town, on the page 13, the town account is pretty much for Betty's services, many of Jeff's services, Ed's services, and then things that are related, as in postage and office supplies, related to those services. So that is the request to the town would be the $23,000 that covers those services. The other projects, and I think, Doug, the most of, in fact, I believe all of the online mooring fees that we've paid that haven't been covered by mooring fees have come, and that we intended to come from the 102 account. So, Commissioners, are there any questions for Ted? Any suggestions? Any knowledge of increase in fees, especially as regards to that first account, the town account?
I'm not aware of any large invoices coming in. This is Harry.
Right, Harry. Good. Any questions, Commissioners, about the accounts and about the accounts in general? Okay. Ted, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very much. Okay, mooring committee, Mr. Hirschler.
Well, this will be an easy one. The mooring committee has not.
Did you want to have a motion to approve the budget, or did you want to wait until December?
I'm sorry, Jack. Betty, I was not aware that I was sort of with the understanding that the town was going to let us know sort of when they were ready for the budget request and et cetera, et cetera. Are we there?
Not that I'm aware of. You can move to approve the operating budget as it is, with no changes this month, or you could do it next month. It's your choice.
Kim, I would suggest that we wait till next month and take another look at this just to make sure there are no surprises that come up in the meantime.
Okay.
I wouldn't expect there to be any, but I don't see any harm in doing that.
I guess I agree, Ted. I don't know. Commissioners or Betty, anybody have a different suggestion?
No, that's fine.
Okay. I also think it's important that we all understand that what the different accounts are and kind of take a look at the balances and give it some thought. I mean, this is not something that we talk about every day, or every meeting, but to feel comfortable with that we have these accounts and what each one is responsible for, I think it's kind of important. So if we have to revisit it again, I don't think that there's any harm done. So thank you, Ted. I agree with that. I agree with your suggestion.
This is Harry. The only comment that I would have is once we get any dredging project approved and actually being done, that money will go very quickly.
Jeff, do you remember what the amount was for the Lower Wharf dredging that the one vendor, the one bid that we had was pretty close, if not a little more than this $150,000, was it not?
I believe it. I can check while we're talking on the computer, but the original grant was I thought was for over $200,000 for the dredging project, and I can check on that as well. So we've used money from that account for the additional sediment sampling and probably some other work too. I can go back, but I think that the bid that we received, even though we couldn't do the work, would have been covered by the money that we had at that time in the grant. I don't think we were looking for additional funds.
Okay.
I'll look and see while we're talking.
So Harry, you're right. When we get to the point when we would be doing the work, most, if not all, of this Lower Wharf project money would be used.
Disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
that's
we may think that we have a cushion, but in reality we don't.
You're right. We may not. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and
Kim.
Yes?
Go ahead.
Kim, I was going to say the same is true for that Southport Harbor account, the 102 account.
Right.
That tends to go up for a year or two, and then it tends to go down for a year or two as we incur expenses to replace tackle and to pay the fees of Pequot Yacht Club.
Right.
For helping us with the work, the fine work that they do with the tackle in the harbor.
Right.
So that number that we're looking at there, which is over 200,000 at this point, I don't think we should assume that that's the number that we're going to be looking at a year or two from now.
Right, absolutely, and all it would take would be one bad storm or something that would require us to get some new tackle, and that money would that total would come down pretty quickly too.
Yeah, Kim, it's Jack. I mean, one thing that you and I have talked about, and we haven't yet talked to Jeff Engborg about, but we were thinking that maybe in our January Harbor Management Commission meeting, it could be useful for me and others to hear from Jeff Engborg to educate us about what those inspections done annually of the tackle look like and how we should think about the budgetary impact of inspection and maintenance. Obviously, there are no guarantees until you look at the equipment, but I think we'd all benefit from an education about how that 102 account can be affected by the results of these annual inspections of the different zones of mooring tackle. And we were going to reach out maybe next month to ask Jeff if he wouldn't mind being a guest to talk to us in the January meeting to help us understand how that 102 account money can vary and how those expenses can be incurred by the commission.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for reminding us, for letting us know
that's Kim,
in the hopper. Yes, Jeff?
Yes, and I'm just looking at our request for grant monies for the Lower Wharf dredging project was $266,000, and I believe we received that total amount in the grant. It's called the SHIP grant, the Small Harbor Improvement Projects Program, but I believe that's what we received.
Okay. So we've already spent some.
Yeah, I don't know how much we spent, and I just know some of it was spent for the additional sampling and testing.
Right. Okay. All right. Any other questions, Commissioners, about our accounts for Ted or me or even Jack?
No,
Excellent.
I'm all set.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we'll this will come up again next month, or whenever the town wants our budget request. Next item on the agenda is the Harbor Management Plan Update Committee. The committee has has put together what it believes is a pretty good questionnaire to be available to the public on SurveyMonkey. As I reported last meeting, the intention now is to have that up and running for a couple of weeks in January. The committee had hoped to be able to have the survey on SurveyMonkey and a special link for the commissioners, so you all could take it and see what the questions were and give us some feedback. And but given the extraordinary efforts and time that the proposed the revisions to the rules have taken, we decided that it was probably not a good idea to throw something else on your plate at this point. So my hope is that we will have that survey with on SurveyMonkey with a link or some way for you to get to it before it goes public, so that we can the plan update committee can get your feedback and get the okay to proceed with making it available in January. So hopefully, as I say, that will be in December. Any questions? Okay, now the biggie on the agenda, the proposed changes to the rules and procedures. Jeff worked yeoman's hours to get this to you. Jack, why don't you and Jeff take it away? Jack, you want to start?
Sure. Let me start. And Kim, you had suggested that based on at the beginning of the call that people had asked questions from the public about Rule number 6N, which appears on page 7. I thought maybe since it's an area that the public has expressed some questions and concerns about, maybe we start by taking a pretty detailed look at that just to make sure that folks are understanding what we're doing with respect to littoral rights, property owners, and the sort of fairness efforts that we've tried to undertake with the rule changes in Rule 6N. So let me start by talking about that. Then we can perhaps go to other rules, Kim, if that makes sense.
That's fine. And just I apologize. Just at about 3:30 this afternoon, the commission got an email from a law firm, Robinson and Cole, expressing some concerns and dissatisfaction with this rule. And I haven't had a chance to read it. I believe Jeff got a copy of it as well, and we can't really discuss that because it came in at 3:30. None of us have read it, and it's not on the agenda. But it's one of 2 or 3 emails that I know Sam got an email from a property owner as well. So there have been several questions and concerns expressed, and I know some of the commissioners, some of you may be questioned by folks as well, and I thought to have a review of this particular rule you all might find helpful in understanding what looks like it might become a little bit controversial. So with that intro, Jack, thank you, and take it away.
Okay, very good. So Rule 6N relates, as you read here in the introductory paragraph, relates to riparian property owners receiving priority assignment of mooring permits. So what this means is people who apply through the online mooring system indicating, yes, they are waterfront property owners on their application, are considered by the harbor master under this rule. And this relates to our rule saying that, subject to all these sub-elements below, that people with waterfront properties can be assigned a mooring before all the other people on the waiting list. And so this rule is going into on what basis someone might be able to jump in front of all the people waiting on the waiting list because they satisfy this rule's requirements as a riparian property owner. So the first little I really says that if you are given a mooring as a riparian property owner, that mooring is not to be used by somebody other than the person who owns the property. So it's not to be rented out, and it's not to be used by somebody else's vessel. The second point, too little I, is really a fairness-oriented policy about priority mooring assignments being granted to people with waterfront properties if they do not have a dock or other structure that would provide suitable access for them to the harbor. So I'm going to read it because there may be people from the public who are listening and haven't printed this out. It says, it is a policy of the Harbor Management Plan that each individual private owner of littoral riparian property will be limited to one dock and or mooring immediately offshore of his or her property, provided that such dock or mooring does not interfere with navigation or cause a significant adverse impact on coastal resources. For the purpose of these rules and procedures, this policy does not mean that such owners are entitled to a dock and a mooring in all instances. Accordingly, the harbor master shall consider whether a littoral riparian property owner applying for a new or renewed individual private mooring permit also owns a duly approved dock or other water access structure providing reasonable access to the harbor management area. It's the harbor master's responsibility to help ensure that the rights and interests of the general public concerning use of the harbor management area, consistent with the public trust doctrine, are not diminished, including but not limited to access to available mooring locations in the federal anchorage. Accordingly, in these instances where the harbor master, with assistance from the mooring committee and the harbor management commission, determines that an applicant's existing water access structure provides reasonable access to the harbor management area, that applicant's application for a new or renewed mooring permit may be denied so as to provide opportunity for additional mooring locations for the general public. That owner may maintain a place on the waiting list without assertion of littoral riparian rights priority. An individual littoral riparian property owner with a water access structure providing reasonable access to the harbor management area and who has been denied an individual private mooring permit under this section may maintain a place on the mooring waiting list without assertion of littoral riparian rights priority. An individual littoral riparian property owner with a water access structure providing reasonable access to the harbor management area and who has been issued a private mooring permit prior to December 31st, 2020 shall not be denied the renewal of that permit under this rule. So it's a long paragraph, but what it's saying is that the harbor master needs to use his judgment, and in consultation with the mooring committee and the full harbor management commission will determine if, in each individual case, if somebody's dock or other structure gives them suitable access to the harbor, to the waters, it may be appropriate for the harbor master to deny priority issuance of a permit to that person. It does not prevent the person from waiting their turn like everyone else for assignment of a mooring permit. So let me stop there and see. This is a long and sort of complicated point in the rule, but I think it's worth focusing here and seeing if folks have questions as Jeff has drafted this.
Jack, could I make a comment?
Please, yes.
Just for what it's worth, that first part of the policy, or the rule that you read about each individual property owner limited to one dock and or mooring, that was established in the Harbor Management Plan 25 years ago. And you know, we could have done a better job at the time of writing it, but the intent was that in every instance, a property owner may have access through either a dock or a mooring, or maybe both. But it's not in every instance. It's both. Not in every instance would it be both. because the conflicts that we've tried to address over the past 25 years have been in large part addressed through trying to maintain a balance in the harbor. And the balance includes the protecting the public's rights of navigation and fishing and on the public trust waters of the state. That's one thing, pursuant under the public trust doctrine, where the state owns the underwater lands and the waters and it holds it in trust for those public uses. We also have to deal with the core of it, the federal policies for use of the Federal Navigation Project, which requires it to be open to all on equal terms. And when we redesigned the main part of the channel as an anchorage, that was to provide mooring locations for the general public. And then the third part of the balancing act is to protect and recognize the rights of the waterfront property owners for access to the harbor. And, although, if the property owner will typically say they have that right includes the right to wharf out, the way that policy is understood now, and of course I'm not a lawyer, but I can read stuff and also know what the DEP said, it's a right of reasonable access. So those are what we're trying to balance. And clearly there are properties in the harbor where, because of the conditions of shallow water, and I'm thinking about upstream above the north anchorage, that property owners have docks that provide access at certain stages of the tide. But the area is not suitable for moorings because of the water depth, and there never have been maybe a few moorings in the past, but not now. So what we were trying to do here is add more, specifics to that initial policy that's been there for 25 years of the one dock and or mooring, and that's what we're trying to accomplish here and balance all those rights and the responsibilities to protect public's rights and interests as well as property owners' rights for reasonable access to the harbor. So forgive me for that long-winded comment, but I think that we need to know that this goes back 25 years. We just didn't make it up, in the past couple of months.
Right.
So, commissioners, do you have questions about this for Jack or Jeff? Sam, you got that email. Are you?
This is Sam. Cargill. Just quick, Jeff. We've seen a flurry of emails from property owners, and I think it's their attempt to be part of the public comment. Mm-hmm. And I am, I'm just to be completely honest, I'm confused on several levels.
Good.
Here.
Ask away.
No, is there, in terms of the specifics of each of the emails that you receive, are they over the same issue, or are we just not that we have to analyze all the correspondence before we, consider this? I know it came in late, but what are your views, Jeff? Go ahead.
The latest email that came in, I have not read. It came in at 3:30. I was not online, and I became aware of it at about 4:20. 4:25. So it's a 4-page letter. I have not looked at it. I do know that the other email that came in was a concern about by a property owner who has a dock that's not usable and a mooring, and a concern that this rule was going to prevent him from renewing his permit. And the rule clearly says that if he's using his dock and has a mooring as of this date, he will not lose those. As of the 31st, he will not lose those rights. I'm not familiar enough with the specific information of that property to know if he's using his dock as a mooring, alternate to the mooring.
Right, but the language in our rules is clear that if the dock or other structure is not suitable for providing access, then that's another basis on which the commission, in collaboration with the harbor master, might conclude that the permit on a priority basis should be approved.
Right,
so
exactly.
this is really the balancing of fairness to the public with the legitimate interests and rights of the riparian property owners that we're trying to accomplish here.
And I totally respect that and appreciate those comments. I just didn't, and Kim as well, I got that email around the same time, and I was immersed in my day job. So
right. Other things, right.
Fairness, and I think it's great to have the public comment and to hear from the property owners, and I think it's important. It's just whether they're going to be prejudiced on our tonight's vote, or this is a grandfathered issue of sorts that will continue, and at the discretion of the harbor master and the harbor commission, et cetera.
Kim, can you address Sam's point just now? For tonight, are we voting to approve these or voting to just move these to the next step, which is they do a public hearing?
Right. So the town code requires that we have a public hearing before we have a vote on adopting the rules and procedures. And the public hearing, I learned from my conversation with the town attorney, is pretty much what we've been doing. It's a phone-in meeting. The lines are open. We hear from the public. We take their remarks, comments, concerns into consideration, do revisions, and then we vote on whether or not adopting the rules. So what I was intending to ask after Jeff's and Jack's presentation this evening was whether or not the commissioners feel comfortable enough to proceed with a public hearing. And it seems to me that we could do that in pretty short order. We're getting pretty good at having public hearings, and perhaps be in a position to modify any rules that needed to be modified and vote on the proposed changes at the December meeting. But tonight is not. I would be asking at the end of this discussion only if you feel comfortable moving ahead to a public meeting. If the answer is no, then we don't. We go back to the drawing board.
Got it.
That's
Kim, this is Jeff.
Those are the next steps.
Understood. Yeah? Apologies, Madam Chairman. I should do a better job.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
I just only because public comment is a currency that we need, and obviously, just
Absolutely.
as Jack said, fairness is the important part. I just don't want people to feel that they have been shut out in any way.
No.
And
No.
So we're all on the same page. Apologies for and thank you for the clarification.
Kim?
So
this is Jeff.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Just a thought without thinking a whole lot ahead of time, but if there are parts of this document that the Commission still has questions about, they could always decide to remove them from this particular change. Sure. For example, if we felt that it was most important before the next boating season to get in place what we've most recently called the North Anchorage permit for the yacht club, and that we felt more work needed to be done on the sections dealing with access by littoral property owners, the Commission could always decide to do more work on the latter and include it in a subsequent amendment, because we're not bound by in adopting these rules and procedures with getting approvals from the state or the federal government or the RTM, so the Commission could hold some of this out and act on it, again when they're comfortable. If that, rather than going back to the drawing board, as you said, and not doing anything.
Right. Good. Thank you, Jeff. That's a very good point. So, So, but Sam, to get back to your point, I agree that that we have people who are interested in commenting. I think it's great. We've had several iterations of emails from folks that are posted on the website. We're trying to do this in a way that gives everybody the opportunity to get their voice heard, and certainly, we have at least one more of those sessions ahead of us. So that's a good thing. Does anyone? But to back to 7 and little I on page 7. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts about that? What Jack has just run through for us and described.
Again, folks need to remember this is the rule with respect to giving a mooring permit to somebody with waterfront property in front of everybody on the waiting list. That's right. The thing to keep front of mind here. It's not whether those people are entitled to a mooring. It's just a mooring before everybody else gets one. All right, Kim, let me move on to the 3 little I and 4, the IV. These two go together. We've talked about this before. The 3 little I says that folks who have gotten a mooring permit on a priority basis because they're littoral riparian property owners and have been granted one, they can also get on the waiting list checking that they are not asserting littoral riparian rights. Why are we doing that? Because of the next point, IV. We're saying in the next provision that people who got their mooring permit on a priority basis under this rule because they are littoral property owners, if they no longer own the property that entitled them to that priority mooring assignment, that they can't then renew that mooring at that point and continue to keep the permit that they got in front of everyone else now that they no longer own the property. But if they had been on the waiting list, they are, in essence, able to exchange, if they get to the top of the list and are offered a mooring by the harbor master by having waited their turn, they're no longer being treated as someone who obtained their permit by virtue of being a waterfront property owner. And if they did someday sell their house, they would not be required to give up their town mooring, if that makes sense. So the way to think about these next two provisions is they go together to enable a way for folks who have waterfront property to keep their mooring, if they wished, after they sold the waterfront property, to let them get a mooring before everybody else on the waiting list. Does that make sense? 3 and 4 go together.
Yeah.
And this is no different than the provisions that are related to our commercial fishermen situation.
Right.
Where the commercial fishermen and we dealt with this situation earlier in the year, had gotten a priority mooring by saying that he was a commercial fisherman and then reapplied to renew that permit and was not a commercial fisherman. So we said, the harbor master said, then you're no longer entitled to that mooring. You're entitled to put your name on the waiting list and get a mooring like anyone else in town has done, but you're no longer entitled to that priority position. And this is
Hi, Kim. This is Libby Trichler.
Yep.
How long, I know it varies, but how long is the wait list? How long can someone expect to be on the wait list for a mooring?
It really depends, Libby, on the kind of boat you have.
Okay.
Ed, do you want to address this? There were a lot of movement on the waiting list this year.
Yes, this year we placed I believe it was 7, possibly 8 people from the existing wait list, and due to COVID, I think I went down to the person who was perhaps 18th, if memory serves me correct, because there were a lot of people, understandably, who did not want to take on a mooring at this particular time. But to answer your question, Libby, I would say if you or if someone was to get on the wait list tonight, you would have a approximately 15-plus year wait to get to position number one.
I guess as not, obviously not a boat owner myself and not using the water, but being a realtor, I would find it really a struggle for me to understand why if somebody was a homeowner and had a mooring and maybe got that through a priority because they were a homeowner, they're a part of the water, they're a part of this area, and even if they do sell that home, for them to then have to get back on a wait list that could take 5, 10, 15 years to clear, I guess I just struggle to understand that.
Actually, Libby, they don't have to then get on the wait list. They can get on the wait list the moment that they buy the property. They can get on the wait list today. They don't have to wait. So what we're saying is that those people with waterfront property, if they think they might want to keep their mooring after they sell their house, they should get on the wait list. And then they would be treated like anybody else who waited their turn to get a mooring. We don't make any of those people leave their moorings. It's up to them. So there's a way for folks to keep the mooring.
No, so I do understand that, but there's still the opportunity for huge time gap, which is what I'm struggling with. So if, let's just say, somebody owns a house there and they've had their boat in a mooring for 6 years as they've owned the house, and 6 years ago you said to them, look, you should probably put your name on the wait list. What happens when their name comes up and they already have a mooring because they're a homeowner?
It switches over so they're no longer treated as if they got it on a priority basis, and they don't have to sell they don't give up their mooring anymore.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That's great. Yep.
So.
But I guess the other thing to think about in terms of the timing, Libby, and is that there are what at now 50 people on the waiting list. Some of
there
those
are.
folks,
I believe 64 right now.
Right.
64. Some of those folks are going to wait for 15, 10 years, whatever the number is longer than anybody wants to wait on the wait list. So, in terms of fairness, I get that the person was there and became part of the community and enjoyed the water from a wonderful spot. But there are 60, 50 other people behind them who are also going to have to wait their turn in line too. So it's a balancing,
Right. I do understand the whole fairness idea more than you know. I mean, I understand that. I guess I didn't understand as a homeowner, and if you already had your mooring, are these homeowners told from the time they get that mooring because maybe they're privileged for that they should probably, are they aware of the situation? Are they told at that point to put their name on the wait list, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, this is a new rule, Libby. So this hasn't existed before. This whole subject has been a cause of concern in the Harbor Management Commission in the last few years. And so we're trying to create rules so it is clear to folks about that. One of the things I would just add is we discussed this several months ago when we were working initially on this question. If you think about this, if houses turn over and we didn't have this rule in place, people one after another could be buying property and getting priority moorings. You could imagine that many of the moorings would be taken by people who currently or in the past owned waterfront property, never leaving openings on the waiting list for people who don't have waterfront property to get a mooring. So you can imagine how turnover of waterfront property could create a very unfair situation for the rest of the public to have access to these moorings.
No, I mean, I totally understand that and respect that. I mean, it's a really tough situation, and it's an interesting dilemma. The good news is the waterfront property is so expensive that it doesn't turn over quite as quickly. So that's not quite it's not quite a dilemma from that standpoint.
Right. So let me quickly just cover the last 2 points in this section, which is B and BI. These two relate, as Jeff alluded to earlier, 2 places within the harbor management area where, due to natural conditions and in one case danger in the latter one, we don't envision having moorings placed. And so these would be houses that may be waterfront property but are not suitable for moorings immediately offshore. Now, these folks in both of these situations can apply for permits for docks or other structures to access the water, but we wouldn't envision putting moorings in these two areas. So 5 and 6 sort of go together as being not suitable for moorings yet in the harbor management area. So that really sort of wraps up the discussion about the riparian rights rule.
Thank you, Jack. Any commissioners, any questions?
No, to me, this is Harry.
Yep.
They seem pretty clear.
Good. Very good.
Kim, I wasn't going to go through them all, but and I turn it over to Jeff. I draw my fellow commissioners' attention to Rule 7 in all of its subsections, which is the new rule that we've created around the North Anchorage permits to Pequot Yacht Club and all the requirements related to that. Rule 4C, which relates to that about the record keeping required by Pequot Yacht Club about all the vessels all the time that are on any of those 51 moorings. And that's on page 8. And then on page 17, we spent a lot of time in our last monthly meeting talking about the transient rule, which used to be Rule 20, now Rule 22. That's much shorter now as a result of the creation of Rule 7, and would draw your attention to looking at that Rule 22, which appears on page 17. So, Kim, I'll turn it over to Jeff for other remarks about the rule.
Jeff, you were the one that you lived and breathed this for days. Why don't you?
Well,
you can fill us in on
I
some
think
of the.
Well, I don't know. I can type stuff, I guess, but I think at the last meeting there was general agreement that that we would try to establish a rule that called for a blanket permit to be issued to the yacht club for the use of the state and federally approved mooring locations in the North Anchorage. And when we first drafted this for discussion, we had called it the North Anchorage Commercial Mooring Permit. And then I think it was Doug that pointed out that that leads to confusion because the yacht club has state and federal commercial mooring permits. And that we're not implying that we're going to supersede those permits, but rather that the state statute requires that every mooring placed no one can place a mooring in the harbor without a permit from the harbor master. So although the yacht club has the state and federal permits, which is part of the agreement worked out 25 years ago, they also require the harbor master permits. So how do we best achieve that and do that in an efficient way or the simplest way? And so historically, the individuals owning boats who were moored in the North Anchorage would apply for the permits to the harbor master. And so we felt that this would be simpler, and so we've called it just simply the North Anchorage mooring permit, but that it would cover the total number of the state and federal permits that are locations, the state and federal mooring locations that are authorized in the anchorage. So to do this, well, first of all, I don't know if you agree that it's best to call it just the North Anchorage mooring permit. Earlier on in the document, we made clear that define the North Anchorage, which is defined by the state and federal, the boundaries of the state and federal permits, and the boundary of what used to be the federal anchorage there. So we defined the North Anchorage early on, and we also felt it was necessary to make a distinction between the mooring locations here and everywhere else in the harbor. And everywhere else in the harbor, as you can see when you read through this at the beginning, we've called those mooring locations and those mooring permits individual private moorings, permits and mooring locations, and that's consistent with the state and federal definition of moorings and permits that are handled by the harbor master and are not used for any commercial purpose. So we've proposed that we call this blanket permit. We didn't call it a blanket permit, but just say it says it covers all the authorized mooring locations, the North Anchorage mooring permit. And we've also said that the yacht club will be responsible for several things. and so that the same information will be provided as was provided by the individuals who previously applied for permits. The yacht club would maintain the information on the individual boats moored in the anchorage.
Right. And excuse me, Jeff. Jeff is on page 3 now, folks. Rule 4 on page 3. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jeff.
I'm just talking through here. I'm sorry. I wish I could see everybody, and I'd know to stop talking. But so the yacht club would be responsible for compiling that information and making it available to the harbor master. And I think it was suggested at the last time that the yacht club will propose the form on which to do this, provide this information. And we're not saying now that it has to be inserted into the online mooring system, that it will be in a form prepared by the yacht club and agreed to by the harbor master and the harbor commission, and available to the harbor master, upon request. And it will be done in a timely way, so that if a new boat comes in to use a mooring location and another boat leaves for a while, the yacht club will provide that information to the harbor master. In other words, the use of the individual mooring locations they'll be managed by the yacht club, and as is their privilege or right under the state and federal permits.
Right.
The yacht club would also. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Jeff, and that's on page 8, Rule 7. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then the other thing the yacht club would be responsible for doing is again, this is information that's provided now, but by individuals, is providing the information on the mooring tackle and the inspection of it, and that we're proposing would be input into the online mooring system. I don't know the technical requirements for doing that, but that's our proposal. And then there would be a fee that would be, but just as it's been in the past, instead of the individuals providing the fee, the yacht club would provide the fee, the mooring permit fee, and that would be based on the 51 spaces, and we're proposing times the maximum fee of the 3 fees that are attached to boats in the harbor. So it would be the 51 spaces times the highest annual fee charged to boats in the harbor. But that's essentially the main change. Although obviously the riparian and littoral issue is significant too. But that's what we've tried to craft in language here. And then once you do that, it has sort of a ripple effect. You want to make sure that the other provisions that you didn't think were directly related are brought up properly to reflect this. And that's one of the reasons we went back and defined the distinction between the moorings in the North Anchorage and individual private moorings that are permitted to individuals and are not used for commercial purposes. So that's what we tried to do, and I don't know if the language can be refined a little bit, but and I guess we really should hear at some point whether the yacht club finds that this is appropriate, and if there's ways that we should look at modifying what we've done here. But this is the result of many months of discussion, and it's consistent with the state and federal permits, and it's consistent with the state statute that requires every vessel to have a permit from the harbor master. These vessels just have a different permit. They're under the blanket permit.
Great.
And this replaces the notion of temporary permits, and the net effect of this is to give the yacht club really complete control over placement of any vessels in those 51 moorings on any night during the season.
Yeah, and it recognizes, as we said in the beginning, also we need to recognize that memorandum of agreement between the yacht club and the town that's been in place since the first season after the harbor plan when they had the mooring permits. And that well, we're repeating ourselves, of course, but that memorandum sort of finalized or institutionalized the agreement, a major agreement in the harbor management plan. The yacht club would be able to have its own mooring field and control its own moorings. And in exchange, and in order to do that, the town had to support the defederalization of the federal anchorage And in exchange for that, the yacht club would provide certain boating services to the community, to the public, which they have provided ever since. Mm-hmm. So that's the moorings there would be managed according to the state and federal permits, the memorandum of agreement, and now this North Anchorage permit, if that's what North Anchorage mooring permit, if that's what we choose to call it.
Wow, Jeff, thank you. Commissioners, questions for Jeff? Questions, reactions to this new rule?
I think there's yeoman's work and a great sense of collaboration between everybody, and I think it's a fair outcome. And that's just a comment. That's all.
Thank you, Sam. Any other reactions from commissioners? Reactions to the rules as a whole? Are we on track? Are we feeling good about these rules? Are there concerns?
I think we're on track. This is Harry.
Yep, Harry. Other commissioners? Comments? Should we proceed with these, commissioners? Should we proceed with the public hearing? Are you comfortable with that? Would you rather not? What's the will of the body here?
This is Jack. I would like to propose that we do proceed. I realize that there's feedback that we've gotten on the riparian rule that I haven't seen yet, so clearly we'll hear more about that, and I take Jeff's thought as one possibility for us that we could, if necessary, carve out that rule and then add it as another amendment in the future if necessary. But I'm trying to keep us focused on being able to implement updated rules in time for the new season, and that will require some updates to the online mooring system. And so being able to make a decision and approve these in December would enable us to go into the new year with updated rules. So with that in mind, I would be in favor of us moving promptly to a public hearing where we'll get more information from the public and have a better understanding of concerns about any of the rules that we proposed.
Thanks, Jack. Commissioners, anyone else like to move towards a public hearing?
This is Harry. I would like to see it move forward.
Great,
Sam Cargill, I'd like to see it move forward.
Mark, Ted, any thoughts? Eric, Libby, Doug?
Am I coming through now?
Oh, now I hear you. Yes, Mark.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was speaking while muted. Is there a downside to moving ahead with a public hearing? I can't think of one myself.
Well, the public hearing is simply that we publish in the newspaper that we're going to have a public hearing. We put the rules once again on our website, which Betty has done a great job making sure that the latest version is on the website. And then we open up we get together, we pick a date. It would take another evening. I guess that's probably the worst downside, is that you guys would have to give up some time. And then we listen. So I really can't think of a downside either.
As compared with all the effort that's clearly gone into these changes, of which there are many and which have a lot of value added. So I would agree with the other folks who suggested we move forward with a public hearing.
Other commissioners, since we'll be requesting your time and presence and thoughts.
Any idea when you would have a meeting in December?
Well, I think our meeting is on December 15th, our next regular meeting, and I would think that we would want to do it. We need to publish in the papers 5 days before the meeting, so we have plenty of time. We could do it that first week in December if that's agreeable to commissioners. We could do it on December 1st, December 8th.
Kim, this is Jeff.
The earlier the better would be for me, only because of the season.
Right.
Kim, this is Jeff again.
Yes,
sorry
Jeff, go ahead.
To interrupt.
No, you're not interrupting.
But the way that this has been done in the past is that the public hearing was scheduled the same day as the commission meeting, and the public hearing, in effect, began the commission meeting, and then the commission, when the public hearing was over, the commission convened its regular meeting. So it was done at one day, rather than a separate day for the hearing. And
well, that's interesting. I suppose we could do that too. That makes it kind of a long day, or potentially could be a long day. But I would be amenable to doing it that way as well. I think now.
Kim, it's Jack. I mean, the one pushback I guess I would have on that is if we hear something at the hearing that would prompt us to want to make any changes and still want to approve this at our December meeting, it would seem like we might want to separate them so that we have some time to give Jeff a chance to help us with crafting whatever changes might be necessary. Because we do want to try to get this thing wrapped up. We don't want this to slip into January for approval. That's where we end up with challenges with programming.
Right. Yeah. And our January meeting isn't until the 18th, so...
Right. We have to send out renewals in the beginning of January. I mean, that's just going to be a problem, I think, for this year.
So other commissioners feel comfortable proceeding with a public meeting?
I would say yes. This is Harry.
Okay. Eric or Libby or Doug, do you have any thoughts about a public meeting?
Yes. I would be in support of that. I have to call back in because I couldn't unmute myself.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, great. Thank you. Thank you for making that effort. So since we've got a pretty good number of commissioners who are comfortable with a public meeting, do we have any preference for a date, December 1st or a December 8th?
The first would be better for me.
Mark, Jack, Sam?
For the same reason I just talked about, the sooner the better for giving us more time if we need it. So the first would be my vote.
I think my view is that the first would be great, but I think that the public will, allowing the public to, sort of absorb all this. I would go with the first or the 8th, but if it goes to the 8th, I don't think that's that much of a problem. It's a very busy time right now, but to give the public the opportunity to review everything, that's just my view, but I can go first as well.
Okay. Well,
Kim, this is Ed Billings.
Yep, Ed.
Just a quick question. What are the town's parameters for for doing a public meeting? I mean, do we have to give them 1 week's notice, 2 weeks' notice?
Well, we have to publish that we're going to have a public meeting in a newspaper with the link to the town website where the rules will be posted. And the requirement is that the posting happen between 5 and 15 days before the public meeting. So these rules Betty has posted already. So in theory, there would be some members of the public who have already seen them. Obviously, not everybody, and so and we still have to meet that 5-day requirement. But
right.
that's pretty much it.
My personal thought is purely for optics, the longer notification would be better. I mean, in my mind.
Sure. Well, if we could even, if we publish something at the end of the week, that's at least 10 days. We publish something this week. We would be 10 days plus 2 weekends.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that would also give us time to
if somebody has enough,
discuss any other emails that came in as well.
What about other emails, Ed?
I was just mentioning that would give us ample time to discuss any further developments vis-a-vis your emails that just came in today, and might come in after today.
Right. And hopefully there will be more emails. Hopefully there are other thoughts, and other members of the public are going to be expressing concerns, and I think that would apply at the special meeting too. I wouldn't necessarily have to be phone calls. We may get emails in the course of that meeting as well. So okay, why don't we tentatively plan to do an October 1st? We'll get a notice out to the paper, the Connecticut Post or the Fairfield Citizen. This week, if we do it this week, that's really plenty of time, or a lot of time for folks to.
Yeah, because they'll want to read the rules as well.
Right.
They'll study them.
Right. Right. Okay.
I do think the way Jeff has got this set up now, Kim, also makes it much easier for folks to read through here. If it's struck through, it's a deletion from our current rules. If it's bolded, it's a new wording.
Right.
Much easier.
It is very easy to read. So much easier. And great. Okay, so let's plan to do that. I will put the wheels in motion to get the public notice and work with Betty to make sure that this version is on the website. Although I believe it's already there, but to get the link taken care of. Is that somebody else with a comment? Any other thoughts, comments about the new rules, new rules and procedures? Okay, then on to new business. As you all saw in the letter of November 6th from Betsy Brown, the town clerk, we are being charged at our December meeting with coming up with a meeting schedule, including dates and times. Last year, we changed our meeting time from 4:30 to 4:45. And that if there are folks who have concerns about the time and or the dates for the 2021 meetings, we certainly could discuss that at our December meeting. So please give that some thought. In addition to voting on times and dates and places of meetings, although I don't think we can do places, we have to come up with a list of officers, and which means we have to vote on a slate of officers in December. So I would like to have some volunteers for a nominating committee to propose a slate of officers. So do I have any volunteers?
Unfortunately, I would not be able to volunteer. We're in the process of getting ready to move back into the original store. So my time is going to be of very short supply. And traditionally, in December, I'm not able to make a meeting.
Well, thank you for even giving it the thought.
Mm-hmm.
Other commissioners? Well, we have to elect officers, and we can't do it without having a slate. So Mark, you did it last year. Are you interested in doing it again?
I was about to suggest names out of a hat. Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mark.
Because you're asking.
Libby or Doug, would you be interested in joining Mark? Ted, I know you did it last year. Well, folks, Mark needs to have somebody.
Muted.
Everyone can unmute, can they not?
Yeah, that's right.
It sounds like the Army asking for volunteers. Everybody take a step to the rear.
Well, I don't think it's such torture. I think that a couple of phone calls to people, and it would take maybe an hour.
Kim?
Yes?
It's Sam. I'll hold you to an hour, then I will do it.
Thank you for the hour, Sam.
And then after an hour, I'm done.
After an hour, you're done?
Just kidding. If the time
does one more person have an hour in the next 4 weeks? Who is that?
I asked if Eric Sudman had an hour. If this is the time where you voluntold somebody,
I'm sorry, Sam, were you asking for me?
Yes, I was.
Would you like to be on the nominating committee, Eric?
How do we? How is that scheduled? Can it be? Does it have to be phone call during the day or evening?
It's entirely up to the committee.
I could do it if it was after 4:30 in the afternoons.
Then you would.
Let's bring him
okay.
On.
Eric and Sam and Mark are the nominating committee, and we will need a slate of officers, a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary to be proposed at our December meeting. So I'm thanking you in advance for your service and for your hour. Is there any other new business commissioners would like to bring up? Great. So thank you all. We will be you will be receiving notice about a special meeting early in December. I will also send you the information about where the notice in the paper will appear, so you can see it for yourselves. And I look forward to being in touch with you in December, and then for our regular meeting on December 15th. Thank you all, and can I have a motion to adjourn?
Thank you.
This is Jack,
I'll
so
make
moved.
a motion to adjourn.
Jack moves. Can I have a second?
Kim, I'll second that. This is Ted.
Thank you, Ted. Second. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Great, excellent. The motion carries, and we'll talk with you all soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Be well.
Thank you. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.